So, hello and welcome, Stefan, to the Overseas Athlete Podcast. How are you?
Good, Chris. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you very much for being on. I've been looking forward to this because you sound like you've got quite an interesting story, and I'd love to hear about it and share it with others, and hopefully it inspires them. So I'll let you kick it off if you give us a bit of an intro as to who you are, where you've come from, and where you are now.
Yeah, so my name's Stefan. I'm currently in Dunedin, in New Zealand, and I'm playing in the Southern National League, like football. I also work as a digital marketer on the side. I'm coming from Windsor, Ontario, actually in Canada, so quite a far way away. But yeah, I'm currently here right up until about September, and yeah, that's me in a nutshell at the moment.
And how did you go from Windsor, Ontario, to New Zealand in Dunedin? How did that come about?
Honestly, so this season started end of April, and the 4 or 5 months leading up to that were kind of a roller coaster for me. I'd been traveling a few different places in Canada, in the United States too, just on different trials, and just through networking, just trying to land, I guess, my next contract. I ended up getting in touch with some people here in New Zealand, and eventually when I came to the team I'm at now, which is Green Island AFC, I spoke to them, seemed like a good opportunity. So yeah, just dived into that, and now I'm here.
Excellent. And is this then, so what you said about sort of jumping around different places in Canada, the US, and now New Zealand, is this to chase the goal of getting a professional contract somewhere as a footballer?
To play at the highest level I can. That's been my goal from the start, of course, and I'm hoping this is just one of the steps toward that. So yeah.
Excellent. And how old are you now? How old are you?
I'm 26.
26. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you did, I know you reached out to me on LinkedIn a while ago, and you'd
Mm-hmm.
sort of said that you'd had that break. So with the age you're at now, I suppose COVID came at a very bad time for you,
Mm-hmm.
if chasing that sort of dream around the world happened. So can you tell us a little bit about that and how it sort of, I guess, put a bit of a handbrake on your plans?
Yeah, honestly, in a few different ways, I look at it as, of course, something that it would have probably been better had it not happened. But then in other ways, it was actually the best thing that could have happened for me. So on the one side, I had made my first move to Australia when I was about 22, 23-ish, and that was in 2020. I had gotten down there, and I was really happy with the team I was with. I knew that Australia is a really big place, a lot of different teams, a lot of exposure to these teams. So I was obviously excited to see how I can just try and come there and make an impact. And about a month and a half, almost 2 months in, COVID started, and our league was delayed, then postponed, and then eventually I had woken up one morning where it was just our secretary calling and just saying, you got to be on a flight in the next 48 hours or you might be stuck here for up to a year, if not more. And so really quickly, everything changed, had to come back home, had to figure out, what I was going to do in the meantime, right? Because as soon as I got back, I had reached out to all the different people I was speaking to before too and everything. And honestly, a lot just either had no answer or were basically, we can't help you. Like, we can't even help a lot of the players we're working with at the moment. So for about a year and a half, almost 2 years in Canada, it was very difficult to even leave. I mean, as far as borders go and everything, it's very much so locked down. Leagues all kind of stopped. And a lot of people even around me, trying to, with good interest, but saying, maybe you should move on from it. Like, this is really difficult. I don't know how you can kind of get out of a situation like this. There's no options for you. There's no leagues functioning at the moment and whatnot. And yeah, so that was that full year, no seasons. The next year, pretty sure it was the full next year as well, if not majority of it. Up until the next season I was able to play was 24, 25. And it was a shortened COVID season as well. So there was only maybe like 10 games in it. And then, yeah, through that, once things started to open up, I just continued on, of course, but During that period, obviously, I had to really figure out a lot of different ways as far as like training on my own, finding ways to just push through those mental roadblocks as well too. And I mean, being so isolated and being so limited, I think really set me up mentally going forward to really approach everything with a really firm head on my shoulders and be able to really just tackle all the problems and you know what I mean, just get to the other side with it. So that, and then of course with the work I'm doing now too, the digital marketing work, I kind of started that in that period. I knew for a long time that I wanted to get into some sort of work that would give me an opportunity to work remotely anywhere and assist me in taking on opportunities with playing that if they might not have been the most financially good opportunities, I knew if they were good opportunities in good leagues, I didn't have to worry about that as much because I'm working on the side as well and I can fund whatever I need to fund. So yeah, it gave me an opportunity to focus on that as well. So then while building my mental kind of strength, I also built a bit of a career through that too, which to this day I'm still working now. And yeah, both are just going well now at the moment. So like I said, it's unfortunate, but I'm also very thankful that it happened the way it did.
Yeah, give you something, I suppose, to have a fallback plan, because it
Mm-hmm.
sort of forced you into it, but still allow you to, as I say, having that remote work availability does allow you to go to the US, Canada, New Zealand, wherever it may be, and as you say, still chase that dream, while at least having money in the bank to keep you going. And I was going to
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
about
exactly.
the training. So while you sort of have had this conversation now a few times, and it's the guys that have played and have got there, have spoken about the extras they had to do outside of their general training. So, what did you find more so around the training that you did do, and obviously how difficult that was, and how you got through that to do it all by yourself?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, anything under the sun you could think of. There was days where in the middle of the winter in Canada, which gets pretty cold, I was out shoveling snow off of fields to try and just create like places where I can just kick a ball at a net, even something as simple as that. I have amazing friends who would come out even at times like that to cross a ball into me, help me work on finishing, things like that. So when I say like really making the most of absolutely anything, I think it was just taking any little thing I had at, at my advantage and just doing something with it. It some days would maybe even just going to the high school down the road for me and kicking a ball off a wall, just going through some reps like that. Just never kind of taking it as an excuse that, this sucks and I'm just not going to do anything. It just constantly finding some way to improve in some aspect, I think is the biggest key when it comes to all that.
And is that something that you'd always had anyway, like trying to become a footballer even before COVID hit, or did it really sort of hit home when you had nothing else to do?
I think even before I was always very motivated to just try and just push my own full potential. I feel like there was instances on certain teams where I was able to perform very well and I kind of felt like I had the feeling of, if I can just get into the right environment, they can really see what I'm capable of and stuff. And so that always pushed me to keep making sure that, when the opportunity does arise, I'm prepared. So then I was always training additionally whenever I could on the side. But COVID really made it seem, or really put me in a position where I was like, you know what, like you no longer can afford to put this off in any sense. Not that I really was before,
Hmm.
but of course my age being one thing. But yeah, that's like 2 years almost gone down the drain where it sucked trying to go forward and say, yeah, I would like to play for you. But the first thing someone will ask is, okay, well, where have you played prior to? And it's not my fault, but I mean, I couldn't play anywhere during that time. So, like I said, just the training, it really made it seem like a now or never kind of thing.
Hmm.
And to this day, I treat it like that. So,
That's
yeah.
good. Helped you think mentally be stronger, and I suppose a routine is one as well, like having that discipline and routine of training no matter the circumstances. Do you still carry that on now even though you're playing at clubs? Is that built into you now, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, even just little things, just squeezing in maybe some mobility work the day before, or just some. honestly, even rest days too. Like it's funny I say that, but I think even that's crucial. That sometimes you really have to know when to stop. You really need to know when you got to do some stuff. So if I get, let's say we have a game day, the next day will be a rest day. The day after that, if I don't have training, great day to maybe go hit the gym, do some workouts in that sense too. So there's always something. I think there's always something, and if you could find some sort of routine like that, that's where you'll maximize your time.
Excellent, excellent. And
Mm-hmm.
going back a step then to how you got to Australia. So how did that come about, moving from Canada to Australia? Like, it sounds like you're making a lot of calls, or making a lot of contacts. Talk to me about like what that process was like, and the sort of obstacles that you sort of had to overcome to do that.
Mm-hmm. That one, to be honest, I think was just a matter of I was putting. So I was about 22, 23 at that point, and my family was always kind of like, keep pushing it and everything, but just have a backup plan. Don't be too crazy about it. If things don't work out, it's okay or whatever. And I think around that age, I had an injury the season before. I broke my collarbone, so then I had to sit out most of that season. And then coming out of that, I just started looking up combines, ID events. Like, I don't know if you guys have much of those in Australia, but in Canada and the US, it's just tryouts where you can go, coaches at it and whatnot. You get an opportunity to play in front of them and stuff. They can be costly at times, but I know people who have gotten professional contracts out of them and stuff. So then I just, for a good stretch of a couple months, just went to as many different things as I could, really tried to put myself out there as much as possible. And I think me just doing that, everyone that was around me, it became very clear, like, okay, this is no longer a hobby. This guy's really pushing this to the fullest extent and everything. And I had a friend actually in Windsor back home. His brother was playing for a team in Australia, and the following season he wasn't going to be returning. And like I said, I think it was just a matter of he knew what I was doing and what I was about at that time. And he presented me with the option. He said, if you're interested, we can try and make a call, set this up. And I was like, yeah, 100%. Like it sounds like an opportunity. So yeah, we organized that. They were happy with what they saw, and next thing I know, I'm in Australia.
And with that, so is that a matter of, because his brother's already played there, they'll entertain you as a Canadian just to firstly have a chat around, who you are and what you're looking for? And then how did it go from there? Did you have to send them video highlights, or were you across here to actually meet them in person?
So thankfully, I was able to kind of secure a signing before going, because it's a really expensive trip, a very long trip to make for just tryouts.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of different people offer tryouts like that, and I'm like, I'd love to, but it's a very far trip. And with them, yeah, they contacted me. We were talking back and forth, just talking about where I've played, what my intentions are, what my goals are, things like that. And then, yeah, footage, CVs, stuff like that. They looked it all over. And yeah, like I said, they were happy with what they saw. So then we ended up going forward with it.
Fantastic. And whereabouts in Australia was that?
It was a small little town just outside of Melbourne, about an hour and a half outside of Melbourne. It's called Cobram.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's very small. It's a very big change for me, honestly, because the city I'm from is close to 300,000 people population, and Cobram, I think, is about 5,000-6,000. So it was a big difference, but it was awesome. It was a very good experience there.
And all the sort of conversations that you had and the footage, etc., was that looked over by the head coach, or like a team of the head coach, technical director, or the club owner, or how did that work? Just because obviously with football, coaches can come and go, as we know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
who sort of made that decision for you, or who did you have most of the dialogue with?
For that one, it was specifically the head coach. I believe he was. No, I don't think he was the technical director, but yeah, no, he was like a head coach, like kind of like a player coach, because he had been playing at the club for a long time too, and then now he was trying to, I think, kind of step more into a coaching role, but would still also play. So it was majority with him, and I still talk to him to this day. Like I said, I had a really good experience there. I'd love to go back, even if possible, but yeah, I don't know, just different things now kind of on the horizon for me and whatnot. So, but yeah.
That was it. No, that's excellent. And the journey, I suppose, that behind the scenes of having to move from Canada to Australia in a short period of time, is that includes, so for another Canadian wanting to come here, what kind of visas or paperwork do they have to go through to allow that to happen?
So I'm pretty sure we can. There's like holiday visas that last about 3 months, which obviously wouldn't be the most ideal for that kind of setup. But I know people that have done that and then they leave Australia, maybe even come to New Zealand or something, and then they reapply and get a new one. So they can kind of figure it out in that period. The one that I applied for was a working holiday visa. That one is, I think, the most ideal that it would be for anyone looking to take an opportunity like that. It's not cheap. It's like about, I think it was like about $500 for that one. But yeah, that I'm pretty sure for the most part, people looking to do that, that's the one they would go for.
And does that give you 12 months of sort of stay in Australia?
Yeah. The 12 months you can work, you can I think it's you can work for, yeah, no, for the entire 12 months you're able to then work and just stay there and everything.
Excellent. Make I
Hmm.
suppose that would give you, I suppose, a bit of time, I guess, in your mindset in your head to go, all right, I know at least I'm here for 12 months. You don't have to, you can then focus on football and trying to achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you don't really feel like you're kind of strained on time in that sense. So it definitely is good. It's a really good option. It's one I wish honestly I'd even known about earlier. When I was younger too, I would have definitely been all over it. So at this point now, it's like you're saying, I hope someone else can maybe even see if they're at a younger age to try and take it on because I think it's Australia's a great place to do that in.
And what did you find were the biggest differences when you got here, apart from being obviously a really small town, but from a football point of view or what you'd been used to in Canada to coming here, what were the main things that sort of stuck out for you?
From a football standpoint, you can see the first things I kind of noticed where there was definitely a bit more, I guess, of like a focus on football, where back home, it's sometimes difficult to even find like a field to train on. You know what I mean? Like if I want to go just somewhere to kick around like that, if it's not a local school, a lot of times it's you'd be hopping a fence or something to get in somewhere, and you're hoping you're not getting kicked off. And I've had to go through stuff like that so many times just to get a little training in. And when I showed up there, I remember the coach bringing me to the grounds, and there was about 3 pitches there, all phenomenal, like really nice facility, and it was all theirs. And the first kind of things I was asking is like, oh, okay, like, am I allowed to come here like anytime? And they're all laughing at me. They're just like, of course, like it's our grounds, you're free to come whenever you want. I was like, I don't have to check in with anyone. Like, no one's gonna come question me or something. And like I said, they're all laughing. They're like, what do you mean? But I don't know. It's just, it was a big difference in that sense. It clearly was a bit more of a focus there. They really had their own facilities, their own grounds and everything. And it was nice. It was really nice to experience.
What about the people? People in Australia, obviously very friendly. We love the Canadians as well. Anyway, so I'm sure you were welcomed very nicely.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. Australians, all the people that I had the opportunity to interact with were phenomenal, very welcoming. I mean, they knew how far I came, and I feel like they really made some sort of effort to include me and just really make me feel at home. It's kind of why even coming here after having such a positive experience like that, it was not really a stressful decision to make at all. Like it's very, very amazing people over there.
And I suppose even like if you strip it back to the fact that you haven't moved here, say for a professional deal, you've moved here for an experience, but it's turned out to be a fantastic experience and hopefully a stepping stone to something. But it's good that football can do that. You can travel the world and find local teams and local clubs and have amazing experiences and meet lifelong friends as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's exactly what I was saying about even the work that I'd been trying to get into, where I just didn't want to have that necessarily limit me. I knew I came across opportunities before where it could have been something, but I knew that just financially it would not have cut it. You know what I mean? I would not have been in a position to provide for myself. And that's what I had been trying to work toward for a long time. And now finally feel like I'm in a bit more of a position where I can take on more things like that, and it's awesome because, like you said, it. I think a lot of people just see those really top, high-paying levels and whatnot, but there's hundreds of leagues, thousands of leagues below that where you can make great money, but you can also just have really good opportunities to play in proper leagues and have really good experiences. So, 100%, I agree.
Yeah, yeah, no, there is. I sometimes find, and as well, just being able to travel, there's so many opportunities outside of your like your home country that are just
Mm-hmm.
worth exploring for different reasons, for lifestyle, just to get on, to network. Like there's so many opportunities out there, and that's what this is all about, is to be
Mm-hmm.
finding them, finding out people's experiences, and hopefully inspiring others to do the same. But a couple of the things that you touched on in the notes that you sent through that I thought I'd touch on. One was
Mm-hmm.
when you're traveling was around insurance. So I found that quite interesting. It's the first time that had come up. So if you just sort of give us a bit of an idea or your own experience on why that's important.
That was, to be honest, a kind of recent one where obviously the first few times I go, I mean, you're going to a new country, you're excited to sightsee, you're excited to meet people, play and everything. It's not something that crosses your mind initially. A lot of times leagues will cover you, of course, to an extent. So if you were to get injured in a game or something, should be fine as far as insurance goes in that aspect. But a friend of mine recently even was telling me about it, where he was actually in Australia, and I was asking him how he went about that because even coming here, I hadn't gotten it yet, and he was telling me how he last minute kind of booked some insurance. Wasn't too expensive. I think it was a few $100s, covered him for about, I think, 12 months, and he happened to get pretty sick when he was down there. I don't know if he ate something or whatever, but really upset stomach. He had to go to the hospital and stuff. And he was telling me how, had he not gotten that, I mean, he would have been in quite a bit of trouble as far as the medical bill after. And I've been lucky enough, I mean, thankfully, knock on wood, I've been pretty healthy since I've even been here in New Zealand and everything. But there's been, I've had odd days where, you eat something and suddenly you're feeling terrible the next day or something. And getting insurance just as like a, just straight up what if, not knowing what could potentially happen. I think it's something that it might not be talked about as much, and people might kind of push it under the rug, like, "Oh no, you'll be fine. Don't worry. I'm sure this is or that's covered." And then when something happens, obviously no one's going to be able to help you when there's a big medical bill on your table. So, like I said, I think that that's something that might not be talked about initially, but it's definitely something worth checking as just in case wherever you go, because it's just not something you want to have to deal with.
And is that just to break that? Is that just travel insurance? Is that like basic travel insurance, or is it a particular type for you moving into certain countries?
Yeah, for me it's just travel insurance. Like the one I got, I think it covers me for 6 or 12 months, something like that. But it's like with that, I paid a few $100s for it, and it covers me for like millions and dollars of expenses in potential like medical stuff. So yeah, like I said, just it's definitely a very good thing to just look into, just to be sure, so that you don't have to stress about stuff like that at all whenever you go somewhere.
I guess, as you say, between like a 12-month visa and just having something like that, as simple as insurance, it just puts your mind at ease that things are covered. Again, it's something you don't have to worry about. You can focus on training, playing, and doing what you want to do. Makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And I think even for my family, it was a good one for them. I think the first time I mentioned to my mom when I was going over, and she's like, "You have insurance, right?" And I was like, "Oh, not yet." And she was freaking out, obviously. So I mean, it gives yourself and family and friends obviously some peace of mind to know that you'll be fine regardless of what happens.
Definitely. Yeah, we all know what's up. We all know what mums are like. It's best
Yeah,
intentions, but constant worry. Constant
exactly,
worry.
exactly.
Oh, cool. And when so how did the move then? How did you finish up in Australia and head over to New Zealand? How did that come about?
So, like I said, Australia, unfortunately, was just the pandemic, kind of putting it on hold. And then, actually, last year, I was reaching out to a lot of new places in Australia too, trying to see if a potential move back could be possible. Getting a visa as a Canadian is surprisingly very, very easy. I mean, I was accepted for mine, I think, within not even a day, which I know for some other countries, people got to wait months at times to be accepted for travel visas. So that was obviously just making that such an easy process. I was looking into that, and then um, like I said, some opportunities came up in Canada, in the United States, and good opportunities. So I mean, I was all over them. So just jumping around all over there, and then I was in the United States training with the team for about like 2.5, almost 3 weeks, and it was a very weird situation where there's kind of a lack of communication between owner coach. I was let go by a coach, and I was called back by the owner again, and then let go again by the same coach, called back by the owner again, and it was just so weird. And an agent that was kind of helping me deal with that at the time, he was kind of in conversation with them for the most part, and even he was like, I don't know what the heck's going on. Like, one guy says one thing, another guy says another thing, and then I think I was just kind of fed up with how all that was going, just the confusion constantly. And so got back on LinkedIn, just got back to networking with some more people. And because of my experience with Australia, a lot of people didn't know what the deal was in New Zealand and how it works here and everything. But I figured it might be similar in a sense. I had one or two friends that had played here, and they had very positive things to say. So going off of that, I was like, you know what, I could get a visa here very easily too. Definitely worth looking into. And just after sending a ton of emails and messages, a few more people got back, and that's how I found my way here.
So that's been, again, just you doing the work, not sort of any agents reaching out on your behalf. You just doing the networking, reaching out.
Coming to New Zealand, yeah. There's, like I said, I had an agent that he was kind of helping me with this that other team too, but didn't really know anyone out here. I mean, aside from, like I said, a couple friends playing out here, I didn't really know anybody that could help me get down here. So yeah, that was very much so just through me doing my own work in that sense.
I suppose when Canada, the US, Australia and New Zealand are so far away from these places that it would be difficult, I guess, for agents to have a lot of contacts over here. You'll find some, no doubt, but it's interesting to hear that you're doing a lot of the work. And again, was it a process of, I've played in Australia, here's some footage, and then like that, without having to travel, they said, yeah, we're happy to have you come across?
So yeah, again, a lot of different people were willing to be open to tryouts and stuff like that. And I mean, now being here, seeing what the levels are like, what the different teams are like, would I potentially look into coming out even for just a tryout? Possibly in the future, if it seems like it's the right fit. But yeah, this one, thankfully, I was able to kind of secure a contract before coming over. It was honestly, with all the jumping around I was doing beforehand, that obviously adds up as far as costs go too and stuff. So I was just looking for some sort of security. I just could not at that point afford to jump around even more and be left empty-handed.
So is this somewhere where now, and you don't have to go into the specifics, but this is somewhere where you get paid to play in New Zealand and how often do you train?
So yeah, I definitely have some things that lower my expenses here for sure. Yeah. But we train about I'd say about two, sometimes three times a week. So definitely a little less, honestly, as far as that goes. The training, like the leagues I was in the past in Canada and stuff too, training about 4, sometimes 5 times a week with the games on the weekends. But I know it's similar in Australia too. A lot of the people they're working as well on the side, and I mean, consistent games like that too. You want to offer an opportunity to recover and stuff, and then throughout the trainings, throughout the weeks. I mean, we have a second team where I'll try and hop in the trainings there too, just to get some additional opportunities as well. So 2-3 times a week like that typically is what it looks like right now.
Excellent. And are you still doing, like yourself, you're still doing the extras sort of in between the work, obviously, you're trying to do to help build the income, but you're still doing the extras and you've still got that mindset over there?
Yeah, no doubt. Like I'm thankfully been able to find a few different clients where I've been getting regular work throughout this whole period of time, because I was looking into maybe trying to apply to some full-time gigs, some salaried like jobs and stuff prior to coming here. And again, thankfully, some of those they were looking to work out, didn't work out in the end. And I've been, for the most part, freelancing since I've been down here. But the schedule that offers me, it's very, very almost like project based, where I get an assignment and just got to be done by a certain day. So I can do that in the morning, nighttime, middle of the night if I needed to. Like, it really doesn't matter. And that, again, sets me up to be able to set up training schedules as well to do stuff on the side, and just really make sure I get to everything in that sense, you know?
Yeah. No, excellent. And you'd mentioned on one of the sort of chats we'd had via LinkedIn that actually just on that, with a lot of those emails that you mentioned before LinkedIn, has that been your primary source of networking and reaching out, or how have you gone about that? Is there different places that you have found that are good to be able to contact clubs directly?
So the two best ones I would say have 100% been LinkedIn and just cold emailing for the most part. Last year, a lot of the conversations I had in Australia were just through cold emailing, just going through these teams' websites, finding contact info like that. But LinkedIn, I think, has been an extremely pivotal one for me because coming up in Canada where I was, I I don't know, I was performing. I feel like I was doing well in the leagues I was playing in and everything. And my my dad, he grew up playing in Serbia. And so for him, it was a matter of, play, someone's going to see, someone's going to spot you out. People are always watching. And that was the mentality he always kind of tried to give me, don't do anything stupid, play your hardest. Somebody's always watching, someone's always judging what you're doing. And I went with that for a long time. And I started noticing, like I was reaching some heights, getting some pretty big notable awards and stuff in some of these leagues I was playing and scoring a lot of goals. And nobody was knocking at the door. And I was like, I don't understand. There's not, in some instances, there was literally not more I could have done as a player in some of these leagues. And that really turned around when I got on LinkedIn and I started to just message some of these people saying all the same stuff that I had been doing these years, but suddenly it was going to the right people. And that's the reality for a lot of players I know in Canada, where now things are developing a little more. We're getting more leagues and stuff, but for a long time, if you don't put your own name out there and you don't reach out and throw your name in some discussion in that sense, you just simply might not be seen. You'll fall through the cracks in that way,
Yeah, it's interesting. That's interesting to hear. Actually, I know what you mean because, like that, there's obviously hundreds of thousands of leagues around the world, and you never know who is watching. But now, with the power of something like LinkedIn, and I guess being able to share footage, share videos through there, and as you say, get direct to the right person. That's good to hear
Mm-hmm.
that it's been a big help to you.
Yeah, for sure. It's been, like I said, it's been crucial. A lot of the people I speak to, even now, one of the agents that I've been talking to for quite a period of time now, who I ring up all the time for advice and just anything really. I met through LinkedIn. I contacted someone in the UK. He had basically said, "Oh, we have a representative in Canada," and put me in contact with him. And he's one of my most, like, I respect him highly and I trust his opinion a lot. And like I said, he's been very crucial, I think, for me at the moment. Just as far as someone I can lean on, someone I could reach out to at all times.
And is that to look at further opportunities elsewhere, or does he specialize in any particular like countries or regions that you're hoping to move to eventually?
So yeah, he's definitely got obviously a ton of connections in Canada, US. I mean, it's all situational in those aspects. I mean, I thought, like I said, I was on the brink of something in about February in the States, and that was, I'm assuming, a lot to do with his input. You know what I mean? Him reaching out and speaking to some of these people. And for me, obviously, I'd love to be able to play somewhere closer to home in some sense. It's obviously wonderful to experience new things like this and whatnot. But if I could get into a bit more established league in Canada, in the US, and not be a 25-hour flight away from all my family, I mean, that'd be cool. But I feel like I'm still at a point where it's just, I'm just trying to grow my resume, get more experiences and whatnot. And just hope that that helps me moving forward.
And just on that point you mentioned, obviously being so far away from family and
Mhm.
friends, how do you deal with that over there, like yourself? You, obviously, again, you keep yourself busy, but no doubt you got a lot of time to yourself. It makes you, I guess, miss home sometimes, especially if things aren't going well, if you've had a bad game or whatever it may be. How do you sort of deal with that from an emotional or like a mental health point of view?
Yeah, so there's no doubt about it. You're that far away from people you were with every single day at one point. You're gonna obviously miss them. There's gonna be things that come up like that. But I think one really positive thing to take out of it, which I've experienced both this time and the last few times I've gone anywhere, is that people who actually want to be in your life will make the effort to stay in your life in that sense, and they will reach out, they will check in, and just like I said, remain in your life in that sense. And it's nice when people who maybe were there for other reasons, they start to flake off. You start hearing from them a little less and whatnot, and it's cool. I feel like I really have a really honest, good group of core friends. Obviously, family too. Like every day, pretty much, I'm calling at least somebody just to say hi, just to check in. You know what I mean? So yeah, you can be lonely at times, just not being able to sit down with them and actually, see them, give them a hug, whatever it may be. But I think if you make those efforts, it'll keep you in a good headspace. It'll keep you good.
Yeah, excellent. That's an important thing because like that, you're there because you're trying to achieve a dream or follow a dream to get a professional deal somewhere. But I suppose there's a sacrifice that comes with that. No matter the sport, no matter what you're
Hmm.
trying to do, there's always a sacrifice, and normally it is leaving home. That's probably one of the big ones. And whether you're in Canada, America, and you end up going to college, that's the first time I suppose over there that you're used to leaving home,
Hmm.
at an early age, and then this is similar but different. You've got to be far away because, as you say, the football or the opportunities might not be as great in your local area, so you have to
Hmm.
look elsewhere. So yeah, it's a very key point.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
the other thing you mentioned, I just thought I'd touch on quickly was you sort of mentioned sponsors. Around sponsors potentially pulling the plug and like that, trying to have some financial stability behind you. Have you had a few
Hmm.
experiences like that where you've looked for sponsorship yourself or it's fallen through, or how do you try and build that or get some sponsorship yourself to keep this dream going?
So yeah, that point actually was, again, another friend of mine had happened where he had a great deal on his hands. The team was doing well. They had a good little setup and everything, and just out of the blue, sponsor pulls the plug. You know what I mean? Suddenly the team can't afford to keep him there. Suddenly he's heading home a lot sooner than he was expecting, and it changed the whole course of his year in that sense. And I can relate with how the pandemic went for me, suddenly changing the course of my year as well. But yeah, I think just with that said, going somewhere and just going expecting anything really to happen. That's the reality in football and just playing this sport. You can just have your contract, torn up tomorrow and that's it. You got to head back or something like that. So for me, this style of work that I do now has been a huge thing for me where, while I'm somewhere, I'm making sure that I both have the money, but making more just in case if tomorrow something happened, I'd be ready to fly back home. You know what I mean? And just how cutthroat of an industry it is, it's something you have to know going ahead of time. Like it's difficult. It's good to be like going into something with an all or nothing mentality, but you have to be realistic at the end of the day and know that if everything goes down the drain, like where are you going to be at that point?
Just planning have some sort of plan for a worst case scenario because you've lived it already, obviously with the pandemic. But
Yeah,
like that, who knows what's around the corner? And as we know in football, it can be cutthroat and things can change very quickly.
yeah, and I guess just to add on to that, it like coming back even right now, I call my parents and they're just like, "Oh, you booking a vacation somewhere on a beach like when you're back or whatever." And honestly, that period at the moment when I come back, like it's one of the things in my head, like take advantage, save up a little bit now. You know what I mean? Just in case, so that the next opportunity comes up, you're ready for that worst case scenario as well. So sometimes it might mean putting off a vacation like that for a little bit. It might mean not taking the time off right away, but I just genuinely think now, just seeing all the different things that have happened, it is the smartest way to go about it.
And what are the future plans or opportunities? How long do you have on, like, say, on your visa now in New Zealand? And what are the plans after that? And have you started that process of looking for opportunities? And how's that all
Mm-hmm.
going?
So I've been, since the moment I've landed here, continuing to stay busy on LinkedIn, continuing to try and just meet as many new people and see what other opportunities I can kind of create going forward. I have a flight home September 6th, so just under a month away. Got a few more games here left. Um, Leaving here, obviously, I think I definitely will be gaining some things that should help me open more doors just going forward. And being here, even it's weird. Like you have an idea of where you want to go and where you want to play and stuff. And the more people you meet, the more opportunities open up, the more doors open up. Even coming here, some of my coaches speaking about some of the people they know in some other countries and whatnot. Um, at the moment, I had some ideas. I wanted to try to maybe even go straight into something right after, but for the moment, I'm going to be heading back home to Canada and just giving my body a chance to recover. Just let whatever injuries I have heal and fix and all those things. And yeah, I definitely think now, both with LinkedIn, both with the people I've met here and everything, um, a lot of different potential ideas of what's going forward, but I just want to, like I said, go one step at a time right now, not get too far ahead, but remain busy on all these platforms and just continue trying to open up as many doors as I can.
Fantastic. And from a like a mundane day to day point of view, when you leave New Zealand, what are the things you have to think about in regards to? Do you need to do anything with your visa when you leave the country? Do you need to close bank accounts? Do you have to finalize your rental agreements? How does all that work?
For the most part, not much. I'm pretty sure bank account's probably the only thing. Some things I've had to do back home is because in Canada we have free healthcare. You have to check in and make sure that that doesn't get canceled if you're gone for an extended period of time like that. So I had to go into the government offices there and just have some things checked with my health card and whatnot. So I mean, that's something I'll have to do when I get back home, make sure that's all okay. But aside from that, New Zealand should be all good. Just like I said, close up a bank account and then head back.
Fantastic. And
Mm-hmm.
the next move from there, you did mention something in one of our conversations around Europe, but problems with passports. So I guess trying to make it as a footballer and a Canadian passport, what's the biggest challenges you've found like that, looking at a UK or Europe, for example?
Mm-hmm. So one of the main reasons why I even actually came to Australia, one of the combines I had attended, it was a soccer visa. It was in LA, and there they just kind of spent one evening speaking about where players should try and go, depending on their passport situations and where they live and stuff like that. And that was one of the first few times I'd been introduced to Australia and New Zealand too, and some of these other countries where they were saying Canadian, U.S. citizens. Going back to how I said with my visa, it was granted so quick. It's one of the reasons why it's such an ideal location for people coming from where I live. Europe has been. I've had a few instances where I've gone and trained with teams over there, and it's difficult for a number of reasons because of obviously being a Canadian citizen if you're not an EU member, so you don't hold a passport in a country that's in the European Union. Um, your spots are obviously you go from fighting for 20 odd spots in a team to fighting for maybe two or three, and that has that has been like I think everyone obviously wants to at some point try and get to Europe. It's kind of known just as the most serious place for us as footballers to go and play and everything. And I initially I went, I saw how it was going as far as that, and then I turned around and went with Australia as an option, thinking that that might be a more ideal route. But like I said, just through meeting more people and whatnot, I started to see that while it is a hurdle in a sense, there are some countries where they are more open to it, and I've seen a lot of these patterns because you can look all of these things up, just seeing certain countries, a little more guys from Canada, from Iceland, or sorry, from Canada and the US, like Iceland, for example. Um, it's just places that seem to be more keen on allowing these players in as internationals. And then on the flip side, there are other countries where you can see it's much more limited. You're not going to get as easy of an opportunity. But yeah, definitely when it comes down to that, it's like visa stuff. If you're able to get a visa over there, I've heard of players. I heard of one player in Germany. He was able to get a visa for some online teaching job where he was teaching students from China English, and it was a very like limited job as far as how many hours he had to do and everything. But he was able to obtain a German like work visa through that, and he to this day is still playing in Germany now because of that. And I'm sure just with his U.S. passport, it might not have gone the same way. So if you can find little tricks and ways in like that, it can definitely change the situation a lot. But it's definitely a hurdle for players coming from where we're from.
Yeah, actually, there's a conversation we had last week with someone that'll be on the podcast shortly, and they took a group of Australians to Spain for 12 months. But similar thing, they went through a student and education type visa because they were still doing their schooling and they were learning Spanish while they were there, and that allowed them a
Yeah.
12-month visa and being able to roll it over as well. So I know what you mean. There's little ways around it. I suppose it's just the research and trying to find the right people that can point you in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Stefan, it sounds like you're having a great experience over the past few years with a pandemic thrown in between. But as we said earlier, these experiences, whether it might not be in a professional sense, it's still you've got to build somewhere. You've got to take these steps along the way. And I think moving halfway, across the world and back and experiencing different things will only help you moving forward. I really appreciate your time coming on today and sharing your story. If there's anything else you want to add at the end, feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I think that this whole podcast you're starting will definitely open some people's eyes and definitely show people just the different possibilities they have ahead of them. I think it's something that I wish I had at one point in time, but I mean, we can only look forward now and do our best to help everyone else just going with their careers. So, yeah, thanks again. Thank
Yeah.
you for having me.
No, fantastic, mate. Thank you. I appreciate it. Cool, mate. All done.